very... Oh, am I on? Can you hear me? We can. You've stolen my question. I was going to warm everyone up by asking, and sorry, because I was too busy sitting down, I didn't actually pay any attention. So can you put your hands up if you were considering moving to Dubai? Anyone considering? Anyone in Dubai and has come back for this conference? Okay, cool. Sorry? Or ADGM. Or ADGM. Yep, thank you. So you will notice that Victoria is not on stage. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to get here because of a delayed flight, ironically, from Dubai. One of the practical issues, perhaps, of being in Dubai is actually attending a Web3 conference, but we'll gloss over that. Thankfully, we've got Connor with us from Autonomous, who are a service provider, and you've spent 10 years in the Gulf and a man experienced in many things. So thank you for filling in, quite literally, in about half an hour's notice. So thank you very much. So to kick off our panel today, I'm going to pretend for a minute that I'm not as fair-skinned as I am, and I could tolerate the heat of Dubai. And I've known lots of people that have moved out there, and yeah, I think I'm going to move to Dubai. What's the first things that I need to actually think about when making such a move? Can I just fly straight over there and set up shop? What do I have to think about?
I'm just going to explain that I'm a tax person, so I'm going to talk about tax.
I didn't explain that. Sorry.
I'm a corporate international tax specialist. I help Web3 corporates move offshore, and I help move the founders as well. If you're moving to Dubai, are you doing it because you don't want to pay tax in the UK anymore?
So what I've heard from my friends is that there's no income tax. I can just move over there, enjoy the sun. There's a big Web3 community over there, and I don't have to pay any tax.
Okay, so then if you don't want to pay tax, you actually need to break UK residence, which is not... There's a lot of misinformation, or maybe just ignorance. So people will come to me and say, well, I'm in the UK for less than 183 days, like i.e. 182, that's enough. Other people will come to me and say, I'm here for less than 90 days, I'm okay, I'm not resident, and I've done 2 months in Dubai because that's all I needed for my resi permit. And they think they're not resident in the UK, and they think they're resident in Dubai. That's not correct. The UK residence rules are actually very complex, even though they are now codified in statute. So for example, if you have a UK home and you're in Dubai, but you don't actually have a home there, and maybe you're kind of living nomadically, so you only have one home, which is in the UK, you will automatically be UK resident regardless of how many days you spend here. If you work in the UK and you don't work enough outside, you could be automatically UK residents regardless of the days. So assuming you manage both of those, maybe you rent somewhere in Dubai, you're working full-time outside the UK, then you're looking at the ties test. And the number of ties you have with the UK will tell you how many days. So it's not a blanket 90. So if you've been resident in the UK for the last 2 tax years, you will have 1 tie. If you're leaving the UK, that means you have 120 days back. But if you're spending 120 days here, you're probably going to be working for more than 3 hours on the days that you're back. So that's a second tie. So now you're only allowed 90 days. You might not have a home here. Maybe you stay in hotels, Airbnb. But if you stay at a family member's home for too long, or if you do have a property here, then it's accommodation. You have a third tie. You're only allowed 45 days. Is it 45? 45 days back in the UK. So actually, it's very easy to remain UK resident or leave and then actually trip yourself back up. So the best thing you can do is actually become tax resident in Dubai. So to move to Dubai, you can have like a residence visa, a residence permit. I think it's only 2, Victoria would answer this better than me. I think you only need to be there a couple of weeks to get the visa. Maybe a couple, is it 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
But that they call it a residence permit, or people call it a residence permit. You are not tax resident in Dubai. To be tax resident in Dubai, you need either 183 days, so 6 months there, or you need 90 days plus having your home there. And if you've got a home in the UK as well, then you need to kind of have your center of vital interest. So you need your business, you need employment there or something like that. So you can get a tax residence certificate with just 90 days, but you need to have more in Dubai. You can't just spend the 90 days. You have to have a home. You have to have a rental agreement, work there.
So I can't just jump on a plane and stop worrying about tax from day one?
No. And then there's a whole bunch of other, I mean, we've got time, I can talk about this. So there's a whole bunch of other kind of things to think about. So we'll have like clients that Let's say they're either a founder or they're part of a project. They've been given a token allocation. They signed their SAFT or similar agreement in the UK, but they don't unlock until they leave. So they leave the UK, they properly break residence, they become tax resident in Dubai, their tokens unlock, they think that's not taxable in the UK. But generally, you'll be deemed to have got them in respect of your employment duties in the UK. So some or all of them will still be subject to UK tax. So let's say you got them, you sign your SAF now, they unlock in 12 months, you did 6 months in the UK, and then 6 months during that unlock period outside the UK, half of that will be taxable in the UK.
Intense.
I was going to say some other stuff.
Go for it.
I'll pause there.
No, I was going to say, Connor, is there anything you would add onto that in terms of moving over?
I mean, there's a few things to consider in regards to the residence permits and how you're going to do that. I mean, obviously, you could find a full-time job and be employed by an employer, or if you wanted to set up your own entity, there's several different ways that you can do that, and there's also a ton of different jurisdictions. There's 7 different emirates in the UAE as a whole, but there's around about 50 different free zones, which means there's 50 different jurisdictions where you can set up that entity. And timelines and requirements are all different for those different jurisdictions. So there's not one set rule, especially in different emirates. In regards to the visa, it normally takes around about 7 to 10 business days to be able to get set up, so approximately around about 2 weeks. In regards to the company formation, again, it depends on what jurisdiction you're going to use. You could be looking at anywhere from within a day, one business day, up to around about 2 to 3 months. Depends on whether or not it's going to be a regulated business jurisdiction. So it depends on each individual or each corporate's requirements and what they're looking to do.
Okay, so quite a lot to think about. So what we're saying and what I'm certainly hearing is, unlike what my friend have said, I can't just pop over to Dubai, sell my crypto, and come back to the UK again.
Yeah, and then you also have to think that if you go, let's say you own crypto now, it's standing at a gain, you break UK residence, you move to Dubai, you sell it, you decide you don't like Dubai and you want to come back. If you come back within 5 tax years, your gain will be taxable in the year you return.
So I need to stay out for 5
So you have to stay out for
years.
5 whole tax years.
It's a lot of sun cream.
Just on that, it's always good to look at speaking to a relocation agent as well, because there's certain things to consider, like where you're going to want to live, what areas are good to live in, especially if you have children. So there's a lot of different other things to take into perspective. So it's always good to speak to a relocation agent as well, as they can advise you on what personal matters you want to look into. Obviously, tax and things, you can speak to a business advisor.
And, sorry, Zoe. So, okay, I'm getting my head around moving out there. There's obviously things I need to consider from a UK perspective and breaking my UK tax residency, as well as how on earth I settle and where I settle in Dubai. And that has an impact on certainly what I'm going to plan to do. What about my business? Can I just move my business to Dubai? Can I set up a new business in Dubai? How does that affect my tax situation? How does that affect, what are the implications there I need to think about?
So again, I'm going to answer from a tax point of view. You can do the practical fun stuff. If you're that individual that's broken UK residence, you've moved to Dubai, and you've got a UK company, let's say it's got some IP in it, has some value. If you're the director of that company, you actually inadvertently make the company tax resident in Dubai, because Dubai, well, the UAE now has corporate tax rules on basically the same rules as the UK. If there's any value in that company, then you're going to have an exit tax. So when you kind of cease being UK resident as a company and become resident overseas, you're deemed to have disposed of all your assets at market value. So that's a kind of trap, if you like, but most people that are looking to move to Dubai are thinking, I hope, taking advice around how do I actually get my company out, or they're at the stage of there's no real value, they haven't launched the protocol, they haven't done the token issuance, so we can get the IP out the UK and into a Dubai structure without any or very limited exit tax charges.
Do I want my IP in the Dubai structure?
Well, different people would say different things.
Okay.
When I was in Dubai last year, I met with 5 different lawyers and I asked them all the same question, and they said it was fine to have your IP in Dubai. And then in January this year, The DIFC put out a notice saying to every DIFC company, you have to produce audited accounts within 7 days and all supporting invoices, otherwise you have to cease trading. And so my view is that regulation and law changes so quickly in the UAE that I would not put my IP in it. I would always have, so generally if you're going to Dubai, you're probably not going to be able to operate your protocol there or issue your tokens. You're going to have to still have some other offshore vehicle like a BVI company. So really what you're moving to Dubai is the DevCo part. So I would generally keep the IP in something like the BVI, do a royalty-free exclusive license into Dubai. So what you're saying is like Dubai can exploit that. We can like have value, recognition, recognize profit there, get the 9% tax rate, but your IP is sitting in BVI. And just to explain why royalty-free, one, you can't have royalty-bearing arrangements with BVI because there's economic substance rules, but also you've probably got no substance in the BVI, and the Dubai tax authorities will say you can't be paying a royalty somewhere with no substance. And just on that, the Dubai tax regime is the corporate tax regime is brand new. And when the VAT regime came in 2017, 2018, everybody thought that there was going to be a kind of laissez-faire approach to it, and they did not. They came down really hard, even on things that kind of points of tax law that were ambiguous or didn't work, say in a multinational group scenario, it hadn't been properly considered. They still whacked huge penalties, even though multinationals couldn't comply with it, and they will do the same. They are going to be very strict on the application of the rules. Do you want me to say where I think they're going to bite?
Sure.
Or shall I stop talking?
It's just on that though, it's quite interesting that you say that, because I was there during that period, and there was a lot of companies that hadn't registered for VAT or an appointed accountant and an auditor, which is mandatory, and you have to do that within 30 days of receiving the license. And they were smacked with 100,000 dirham fines, which is just extortionate. So there's a number of things to consider when you're moving a business over there. Appointing an accountant and an auditor is one of them. Another one is obviously setting up for VAT or registering for VAT, and also registering for corporate tax as well now. The threshold, I think, is 350,000 dirhams before you have to pay some sort of corporate tax. Corporate tax is currently 9% there. But it's always good to appoint an accountant and auditor straight away so that you're aware of these things and you're not going to be penalized further down the line. In regards to obviously formation documents, if you're moving a corporate company over there, then you have to get all of the parent company documents legalized and attested, and in some circumstances, they might have to, well, in some certain jurisdictions, they might have to be translated into Arabic as well. So that's another cost that you could implement.
Yeah, interesting. And presumably, does it needs to be a local auditor? Does it have to be like local region, like auditor, or can it be, who can I pick? How do I go about even finding that out?
Yeah, no, it has to be somebody that's physically based in the UAE. And it also, if you're setting up your company in Dubai, whether it's in a Dubai free zone or Dubai mainland, it should also be an auditor that's in Dubai. It can't really be in another, it can't be in another emirate.
And do they have, obviously in the UK, from an audit perspective, we have thresholds, you have to have certain assets, turnover, people. Are there any thresholds there, or is it just any operational function, it's audited?
Depends on the jurisdiction and what the business activity is. Obviously, if there's certain activities that are a little bit more regulated, then there are going to be more. It's going to be more restricted, and there's going to be laws and regulations surrounding that. If it's a free zone and it's a standard business consultancy, then no, not really.
So going back to what you were saying earlier on, right? We've got new regimes. We've got quite significant and possibly severe repercussions of non-compliance when something new is brought in. You mentioned about when you think they might bite.
Yeah. Okay, so we've still got the scenario of the founder has actually moved.
Me.
So, okay,
I'm
so
moving.
you've actually moved to
founded,
Dubai.
I'm moving.
Fine. We haven't got someone in the UK thinking that they're in Dubai.
Sorry, I've moved now. That's what the
Fine.
clients do. I'll tell
We're
you later.
coming on to that.
I've moved to Dubai.
Fine, we can discuss that. Okay, so as I was saying, if you're in Dubai, you're not likely to be able to run your protocol, issue a token, so you're still going to need some sort of offshore structure. So really your Dubai company is, instead of having a UK DevCo, you've got a Dubai DevCo. So then you're looking at, what is my token issuance structure? Is it a BVI subsidiary? Is it a Cayman foundation with a BVI sub? Is it an ADGM foundation? And which one to choose will be very fact specific. So if you have no decentralization plans, you're not going to be using a foundation. If you've got some sort of future exit plans, you're probably going to have Dubai Co. with a BVI subsidiary, and everything is grouped together, and it's easier to monetize the IP, monetize the assets if you need to do future fundraisers, or if you want to do an exit. The UK, so if you had a UK DevCo, you've been able to set up, say, a Cayman Foundation structure with the BVI sub, operates the protocol, does the token issuance, and you've been able to structure that in a way so that they're not related for tax purposes. So all of the profits from the token sale, all of the profits from protocol fees, they are all stay in the foundation and are not subject to UK tax. That actually changes from 1 Jan, but we're not here to talk about that. In Dubai, the new transfer pricing rules are like our new ones from the 1st of July, from the 1st of January. So a Dubai DevCo will be related to a Cayman Foundation and its BVI sub, and any of that token issuance will have to be transfer priced, so basically paid back into the Dubai company, and will be subject to 9% tax. So there's almost no benefit to the foundation type model unless you genuinely have decentralization plans and you want to have properly decentralized governance that is wrapped in an orphan vehicle. But you can go for a ruling, just to throw it out there. So
how do I do that?
So if you've got decentralization plans, you don't even want to pay the 9% tax, which some people are actually happy doing, you might be able to hire enough people on, say, a Cayman Foundation type structure board that you don't have to bring everything into Dubai. But the tax law is so new, you would then go for a ruling with the Dubai tax authorities. So you'd say, look, I've got these 3 people, they're responsible for this on the foundation, this is what DevCo's doing, we have these decentralization plans, like we really don't want to benefit from this, we just want, you know, service fees to build the further develop, etc. You would probably be able to get a ruling that says they're not related, or at least what you're paying to Dubai is arm's length.
Are they quite engaged in conversations? Are they quite receptive to those rulings?
I haven't gone for a ruling there before because this is brand new, but my colleagues in Dubai say that, yeah, that you can do that, and you can do it relatively quickly. You know, as compared to the UK, if you went for an advanced pricing agreement, it might take you 5 years, whereas here you could do it in a few months.
Yeah, interesting. Connor, what else do I need to think about? There's so much going on in terms of my tax position. Having a DevCo over there, presumably the economic substance you talked about, I'm going to have to drag my devs over to Dubai, or maybe they're already there anyway, don't know. But what else practically do I need to consider to actually make this a reality? Is there anything else that I need to think about?
It's just obviously in certain aspects of moving over there, it's obviously finding out, as I said earlier, it's potentially speaking to a relocation agent and discussing what areas you should look to live in. Obviously, if you've got a family, then you should probably look at like a villa jurisdiction as well, or area. If you're a single bachelor or bachelorette, then you should probably look at moving into the marina. So there's certain different jurisdictions where
it's great content.
Where you could have more of a sort of social aspect of things rather than being in a family jurisdiction. So again, it all comes down to the individual and what their requirements are, to be honest.
And I guess just personal opinion here, you know, obviously Dubai is looking to attract tech talent, grow their population. They've made it very clear that Web3 is a space that they are willing to bring people in from. What if they change their mind? Would they change their mind? Could there be some point in the future where they actually go, hey, actually, we've changed our minds on Web3, we've put too much money in things that didn't work out the way that we liked them. Actually, no thanks. Is that a reality? I'm sort of spitballing here.
It's probably not going to happen in Dubai, but things can change that quickly. And I think you've got to think about having an escape route. So, like, i.e., not having your IP there, getting ready to be able to relocate people, assets, etc. Obviously it depends on the stage of your business and how much funding you have, but you'd almost have potentially like a mirror structure. Like if you were big enough, I would have a mirror structure to be able to,
It's a bit like banking here in the UK, just have a backup.
yeah.
It's again, knowing that you need to liquidate your company correctly as well, because there's certain jurisdictions where you might have to put a post in a newspaper for up to 2 months to make sure that if there's any liabilities outstanding with anybody, they have time to be able to come forward and present those to the courts before you can actually close down your company. And that's because of Sharia law. So again, going back to picking the correct jurisdiction, there's jurisdictions where you've got English common law and then you've got jurisdictions that fall under Sharia law. So there are certain things you should take into consideration if you do want to liquidate the company.
So the theme I'm hearing here is just take advice on a number of different facets before just jumping on a plane and going over there. We've got about 5 minutes left of the panel. Is there any more points that either of you would like to speak about before we open up for some questions?
So actually what I see more isn't the founders or founder moving to Dubai, is they're here in the UK and they're like, I don't want to pay tax here and I don't want to be here for reg, so I'm going to stay here, but I'm going to set my Dubai company up and think that they can just do everything through the Dubai company and not pay any tax, which is not the case. So in the UK, we have anti-avoidance rules that stop UK resident individuals from setting up an offshore company, whether it's Dubai, BVI, and parking profits there. So these rules called transfer of assets abroad, they will just pretend that you received the income. So if you set up a Dubai company and did a token issuance from it, or a BVI company did a token issuance from it, you will be personally taxable at 45% on everything in that BVI company. Or Dubai company, because the rules just look through it. So if you are a project that actually wants to stay in the UK but doesn't really like the tax landscape, no longer have the shelter of the Cayman Foundation type structure, my advice would be set up a UK company or keep your UK devco, keep your IP in the UK, at least initially, and then look at who can you hire in Dubai. And what we can do is extract the IP from the UK, tax-free, put it into if we do it correctly, put it into a Dubai subsidiary, and actually then recognize more profit and pay tax in Dubai at 9%. So like people will come to me and say, I really want to save tax, I don't want to leave, I might leave in the future, what do I do? Can I set up a Dubai company now? Like, absolutely not. Like, do a UK company, we can get you out. If you're at the stage where you're able to start hiring and maybe the IP is low value enough, I'd still say have a UK holding company, Dubai subsidiary, maybe a BVI subsidiary to own the IP, to do token issuance, etc. And then start hiring your decision makers in Dubai, which just for ease of reference, I'm going to say C-suite, but not all the C-suite, but it could be other levels. But when you have the decision makers in Dubai, you can allocate more profit there. So you can go from a 25% tax rate to a 9%, and you can do it when fits with your business, not an artificial structure that either you can get penalized on at 45% income tax, plus 200% penalties, by the way. So if you set these structures up and you don't get the tax right, and you don't report the tax, you get 200% penalties. So this UK holdco, BVI sub for IP, Dubai sub for hiring people over time is, I think, the best way to do it, particularly post 1 Jan when we have the changes to the UK rules.
The only further thing that I would add is business banking. Banking can be a real pain in the neck in Dubai, especially to be able to set up a bank account from the get-go if you're an entrepreneur. If you're a corporation elsewhere, then generally speaking, it's a little bit easier. As an individual, it can be more tedious. Also, taking into consideration deposit balances. Deposit balances can start from around about 20,000 dirhams, so that's something else you need to keep in mind if you're saving money to move over. But banking, there's options to be able to set up a company without taking a residence permit. But if you try to set up a business bank account without having appointed general manager on the license that has a residence permit, it's nigh on impossible. Yeah. So even though there's options to not have any visas underneath the company, if you want to set up a bank account, good luck.
Yeah, that's my experience. If the shareholders are resident in the UK and they don't have a proper residence visa there, you're not getting a bank account open in Dubai.
Could I just use crypto instead? Is that, can I just accept payments or receive? crypto for things?
I'll let you answer
Yeah,
that question
I mean,
as well.
crypto is still relatively new in the UAE. There's a lot of banging around on like social media about it at the moment, but in practice, it's still somewhat frowned upon. People don't really take many payments, or people can't set up crypto exchange accounts to be able to take payments with their Dubai entity, so they tend to do that elsewhere. I mean, what's your experience?
Yeah, so we'll have, say, a UK company that has a UK bank account, and then we'll use that as like an agent for the Dubai company. So let's say the Dubai company is the one that should be receiving the income. Let's say it's the one that should be earning the revenue, we're booking revenue there, but it actually can't, it doesn't have a bank account, it can't pay anyone in fiat. Then we'll have the UK bank account do that, and we'll have like an agency arrangement that says it can do that on its behalf. It's not ideal, but there isn't any other option.
Okay, cool, thank you. I think we've got a couple of minutes left, so we're happy to take some. Are you happy to take some questions from the audience?
Yep.
Fabulous. Yes, sir.
That probably tells me there's a business there. So, but yet it sounds to me like you could easily spend, I've looked at this, easily spend $100,000 there and you don't have much to show for it. And in fact, you've only tied yourself up in knots anyway. So if you were starting clean, and of course, we look at Dubai as being a couple of places, you know, we look at Zug, we look at Switzerland, look at BVI, we say, okay, can set that up for 5, 10 grand. Go to Dubai, spend 20. Okay, we've got all these entities everywhere. And at some point, you have to be very careful. Obviously, you mentioned the regulatory side of it. You have to keep, for example, research and infra separate from trading. So you got to be quite careful there as well. What is a good, and the question is probably to Zoe, what's a good journey for somebody who wants to have a mixture of, say, for example, research, infrastructure, for staking, maybe, and ultimately you might want to execute as well, which means you're connecting up to markets. What's a good path if you have an idea in your head and you're saying, okay, it sounds to me like the worst thing you can do is start the process without the advice. Maybe you could take us through it for a few seconds.
Okay, so I would start with getting I'm not a regulatory lawyer, so I would start with regulatory advice, like what can you do, of all the things you've listed, what can you do in Dubai and what can't you? And how long will it take to get the relevant licenses? So, you know, you mentioned you have to split out. So you couldn't, for example, have one Dubai company that provides like head office type services, employs everyone, and have the same company develop IP and provide services to a foundation or other type structure. You actually have to have them split out in 2 entities, which does double your cost. You have to get an innovation license on one, a head office license on another, and that's just 2 sectors, and you mentioned multiple. So I think the starting point is what are you allowed to do and where? Well, would I start there? I'd actually probably take a step back and say, where are the people in my business? Who do I have right now, and do I really want to keep them? Like, let's say everyone's in the UK and you want to get out. Okay, who can you relocate? Who can you get rid of? Which sounds mean, but a lot of our clients do just get rid of people because tax actually is and regulation are massive drivers. So I'd probably start with what actually works for my business, and then think about where can I hire. So if I need to hire, I don't know, a CTO, like, could I hire that person in Dubai? And so then I would kind of almost map out who I can hire, what can I make Dubai work, and then I would go and get the reg input. And then the thing is, reg's often quite a simple solve, and then tax comes in and messes up all the reg options. So reg would say, look, you can do these, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 options, and then we come along and say, actually, only one works for tax, or none of them work for tax. So you can't, I was going to say you go down the reg route, but you could spend a lot of money taking advice on 5 different options, and actually only one was ever going to work because of tax. So you do need to look at tax and reg at the same time. But I would always start with what's actually going to work for my business. The feedback from a lot of my clients who have left the UK, gone very nomadic, who've had, say, offices here, even though most people work at home. They've lost any culture. They've lost a lot of people's enthusiasm. A lot of them are nomadic, so they have left the UK. They're spending time in multiple jurisdictions, and they are broken. So I have many clients right now, and they're like, we went to Dubai, we don't want to live there. We went to Spain under the Beckham ruling, we don't actually want to live there. We were in Switzerland, we don't want to live there. We want to come back to the UK. Like, the number of people that have said to me, London is the greatest city in the world, having spent a year trying to be nomadic or live in places like Dubai. And so actually, I think this, starting point has to be what works for the business.
Apart from the weather, that is.
I don't know. I actually lived in Ibiza for the whole of the last year, and every time I came back from April, trying to work out if I was going to come back or not, the weather was insane. It was like so sunny, and I was like, yes, I'm coming back to the UK. So I think we've had a good summer. Good.
Let's handle out for today. We haven't been rained on at Tobacco Talk, so there we go. Anyway, thank you everyone for attending. We're going to wrap up now, but if you have any questions for any of the panelists, do have a chat with them afterwards and enjoy the rest of your Zebu. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.